In this video we travel southeast towards Norfolk, looking for rare geese, larks, gulls and owls. This adventure started off with a 4.5 hour drive to Norfolk. When we arrived it was late, so we went to bed. We'd parked up right on the beach at Snettisham and we woke up to a very cold and wet morning. I wandered down the lane waiting for Katie to catch me up. Hey folks, good morning. We're at Snettisham in Norfolk. Katie's just finishing getting ready and then she's going to join me. We're on a quest for lesser white-fronted geese, which are reasonably rare in the UK. Apparently there's been a group of them here. So we're going to go looking for them and hope we don't freeze because it's absolutely... The road went past a caravan site and then onto a mud bank that looks over some beachy scrub on one side and some wetlands and fields on the other. And that's where hopefully we'd find some lesser white-fronted geese that had been there on previous days. As I began walking down the bank, I did spot two what appeared to be muntjac deer that were feeding along the hedge line at the bottom of the bank. It looked like one was an adult and one was a youngster. I walked further until I found a break in the hedgerow and looked out on the flooded fields in front of me. It was about this time that Kaylee caught up with me. She's with me.
I am.
How's the weather, babe?
Horrible.
Baltic. This area of farmland and flooded fields is pretty large, with birds reasonably near and some far in the distance, so finding the lesser white-fronted geese may be a challenge. As we were stood there, some geese flew in, but these were grey-lag geese. This group began feeding and was soon joined by some more grey-lag geese, and some Canada geese too. We could see some geese that were feeding on some grass that was obscured by the hedge, so we moved a little bit up the bank to get better views. And after a little bit of manoeuvring, we found our lesser white-fronted geese. There was a number of them here. On previous days, somebody had counted 22. Although we didn't count them, there were some feeding with grey-lag geese, and some in a group on their own. And luckily for us, these geese were quite close. I did fear before we came that as this is such a large area, we may have been scanning through geese in the far distance. But being this close, we couldn't have asked for much better. We got great views of these wonderful little geese. This species breed on tundra in Siberia and Scandinavia, and are globally rare and considered vulnerable. Due to this, there are some reintroduction schemes taking place to strengthen the population, and that's where these birds are from. We know this because some of the adult birds here are ringed. This group have done a bit of a tour of the eastern UK, being at Flamborough Head in Yorkshire a few weeks ago. And we're over the moon that we were able to catch up with this lovely group of awesome little geese. We got them.
Yeah, they're literally...
They're right there. There's a massive group of them. It's amazing little birds. We've only ever seen one before and that was asleep. So it's lovely to see a group of them awake.
And there's muntjacs.
And there's muntjac deer and other geese. But it's cold. Despite this cold, we carried on watching the lesser white-fronted geese for a bit and picked out this domestic goose, grey-lag goose cross, maybe, that seemed to be chasing all the grey-lag geese off of its territory. We now left the geese behind and wandered on the path towards the van. It was about now the weather got even worse. Hey guys, it started snowing. I'm hoping that doesn't carry on. On the path towards the van, we did spot this greenfinch that was singing, a silhouette in a tree, but that's a new bird for the year list, so that's great. And as we got back to the van, we looked out on the sea to this raft of widgeon that were bobbing around in the cold water. But now it was time for us to move on.
We're on a golf course again.
We are on a golf course again. We're at Old Hunstanton. We're going to the beach looking hopefully for shorelark. Also, yesterday there was a young glaucous gull here. So that'd be amazing if we find that as well. But off the year list, that'd be lovely. Let's see what we do find though. Stick with us. As Kaylee mentioned, we were back on a golf course. Luckily, walking across this course, we didn't get hit by any stray golf balls and ended up on a path which had a bit of coastal marsh on one side and some bushes on the other. In the bushes there were lots of birds flying in and out, including goldfinches and large amounts of reed buntings. Across on the other side, on the coastal marsh, we saw flocks of skylark and also some wading birds like redshank. This path eventually led to the beach. In previous days, the shorelark we were looking for had been seen on a shingle ridge, but unfortunately we couldn't get there immediately as there was a stream in the way. This meant us walking further down the beach until the stream shallowed out. This is where we crossed. I still got wet feet, but never mind. Once we'd made it onto the shingle ridge, the challenge was to find some small, quite camouflaged birds amongst the pebbles and sand. Luckily though, we had some help. We spotted a couple of other birders on the shingle ridge who'd found the shorelark at a distance. And there wasn't just a couple of them, there was a group of them. We walked a little bit further down the beach to try and get a better view of these amazing little birds. We got a little bit closer and stood and watched them as they actively fed on the beach. This species has quite a distinctive appearance with a lovely black and yellow face, and in the summer the males have small black feathers that look like horns on the side of their heads, hence why in North America and Canada they're known as horned lark. Over here in the UK they're not breeders, but do visit us in small numbers, either on passage during migration or over winter like this group.
There's 5 shorelark, isn't there?
There's 5 shorelark. That's amazing. They weren't where they were supposed to be, as well, the way they reported to be. They weren't close. Another bird has spotted them, and we walked a bit closer, getting wet feet, but still amazing, and the most I've ever seen in one go. So excellent. Now, looking for gulls.
Our next target was glaucous gull, but we were soon distracted by something else.
What you got there, Nigel?
I've got one of 3 red kites that are hunting over the beach.
That's amazing.
That is nuts.
There was a group of 3 red kites hunting over the beach, one coming close enough to give us lovely views of this large bird of prey. And as mesmerising as it was to watch these impressive raptors hunting, we did have a rare gull to find, and this meant some scanning of the beach in front of us. And there were plenty of gulls to look through. Most of them unfortunately were in the distance. There were some other birds here too, like quite a few wading birds. There were large groups of oyster catchers on the shore roosting, and on the water's edge there were sandling actively running up and down, feeding on the tide line. Other wading birds here included knot in quite large numbers. These were joined by dunlin too. There were a few gull species, herring gulls, and quite a few common gull, like this one that's in the water behind these roosting curlew, but no glaucous gull. We began to make our way back up the beach until I saw out of the corner of my eye an unusual looking gull flying around. I noticed instantly that this bird looked a bit different than the other gulls present on the beach. Could this be our glaucous gull? We watched it fly around until it landed. As soon as it landed, we focused in on the bird with our binoculars and our camera, and at that point we could confirm it was the young glaucous gull we were looking for. It landed near an old seal carcass that was on the shingle ridge.
I spotted the glaucous gull. It flew in. Is that it there? No, it's just taken off now. Look.
Yeah.
It's
On
near a
top of
seal
the seal
carcass. There's a seal carcass, and it's feeding on that. That's amazing. Absolutely stunning.
It's flown off because there's a dog.
As it was a Sunday morning and no longer raining, this beach was full of people walking and lots of dog walkers. And unfortunately for us, some of the dogs that weren't on leads were attracted by the seal carcass, which spooked our glaucous gull, who flew off out of sight. We walked a bit further up the beach, only to see the glaucous gull fly back around and return again to the seal carcass to feed. The glaucous gull is the second largest species of gull in the world and are Arctic Circle breeders, with the nearest breeding colony to us being Iceland. These birds disperse in the winter, and some end up on British shores like this one. We watched it feed for a while until it got spooked again and disappeared over the ridge. So we headed back in the direction of the van. But this wasn't the last we were going to see of this gull. After climbing down the shingle bank and crossing a slightly shallower stream but still getting wet feet, we found our gull again, also paddling around in the shallow water. And this time it was even closer than before, giving us wonderful views of this amazing Arctic visitor. Whilst watching our glaucous gull friend, things got even better. We saw over the shingle ridge near the gull, there was the group of red kites, now circling low over the beach. A few of them seemed to be displaying to each other, which was incredible to see. This had been a pretty amazing wander on the beach, but now it was time to move on. And this time to RSPB Titchwell Marsh.
Hey folks, we're here at Titchwell Marsh. We've just met a really nice person who apparently subscribes to our channel in the reception, which was nice. We've just come from Mooch to see what's here. We've just seen a very very camouflaged tawny owl. I'll put some footage out, but it's you can't really see it very well, but still I'm counting it anyway. We're gonna have I know, it's beautiful. Right, we're gonna head out into the reserve. Stick with us.
We stood and watched the tawny owl for a little bit, trying to find its face among the leaves, but only seeing its front. Never mind, it's still enough to count it. We now followed the path, firstly back towards the reception, where there were some bird feeders. These were busy with wood pigeons on the ground picking up the scraps, and small birds coming to the feeders like blue tits. We now walked down the long path past the reed bed and on towards the hides, with marshland on one side and floodwater on the other. En route, seeing a small group of 3 barnacle goose flying over, which is another one for our year list. Fantastic. On the flooded side of the path there was a mud bank, and this was busy with waders. There were hundreds and hundreds of golden plovers roosting on here, and amongst them some lapwing. We carried on along the path past all these golden plovers to the hide that overlooks this flooded fresh marsh. Looking out from the hide there was lots of birds. On the bank in front of us there were some teal and lapwing roosting, and out on the water there was quite a lot of waterfowl. Some of the ducks included gadwall, like this individual that was feeding in front of us, and also pochard, like this roosting male bird. As we looked on, a few geese flew in. These were Brent geese. There were a number of this wonderful little goose species here. On a small bit of submerged stubble, we did spot this snipe feeding. This was one of a few of this species we saw here. Just as we were about to leave the hide and head back towards the van, I spotted on the far side a buzzard, surrounded by a lot of feathers. I'm not sure exactly what species the feathers came off. It looks maybe like a pigeon, but feel free to correct me. Regardless, this buzzard was having a whale of a time, pecking away and feeding on this carcass. This, although a little brutal, is an amazing sight to see, and as much as we'd have liked to have stuck around and continued to watch the buzzard finishing its dinner, we had one last bird to see before it went dark.
Hey folks, well, that was a nice little trip to Titchwell. It started raining now.
Good timing getting back.
Good timing getting back in the van. So we're well into the afternoon. We're going to have one last trip before the end of the day, and we're going to head out of Norfolk. So stick with us for that.
We now headed about an hour and a half into Lincolnshire.
Hey folks, this is our last little stop of the day as it's starting to slowly go dark. We are at Deeping Lakes Nature Reserve. Stick with us, let's see what we find.
We wandered on the very muddy path down towards the first screen. From here there were quite a few ducks on the water, mainly tufted ducks and widgeon. On the far side we did spot a pair of mute swan on the bank. But we didn't stay here long as we wanted to get to the next hide, as there was something we really wanted to see.
Hey folks, so we came to Deeping Lakes kind of for a reason, and I didn't want to say it before because I thought I'd jinx it.
There's a long-eared owl.
But there's a long-eared owl roosting in a tree really close in front of us. It is amazing. Its face is obscured a bit,
But he's there.
but it's better views than the tawny owl earlier. That is crazy
See
cool.
the short, you know?
Just need a shorty now. Yeah, brilliant, absolutely stunning.
We saw long-eared owls here roosting last year, and hoped, even though none had been reported for a few days, that we might see one. and it really paid off. This species is strictly nocturnal, so more often heard than seen, and pretty shy, so seeing one like this is incredible. We sat and watched it, and some of the other birds around us coming to roost, like these cormorants in a tree in the middle of the pool. But now it was time for us to head back to the van before it went pitch black and get some dinner.
What are you eating?
Ham, egg and chips. It's yummy for our dinner. We didn't buy it this time, we made it, or Kaylee made it, in the back of the van on a single hob. Amazing, isn't it?
It had been an incredible day with views of some amazing rarities. We'd had lesser white-fronted geese, super views of shorelark feeding on the beach. We got really close to a fantastic glaucous gull, and we topped it off with this amazing long-eared owl. Birding days don't get much better than this, but now it was time for us to settle down for the night.
So we've got to set off towards home in the morning. We might stop on the way home at a couple of places, but that'll be on the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Please like,
Please subscribe.
and please press the notification bell.
Bye.
We'll see you next time.